All right. Hey, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Footprints, guys. And we are so stoked to have the man, the myth, the legend himself, Brian King-Sharp from Sasquatch Odyssey. How you doing, man?
I'm good, fellas. How are y'all?
Fabulous.
Yeah, man, we're doing good. We're so stoked to have you. It's going to be a great podcast.
Thanks for joining us. Seriously.
Yeah, I really appreciate the invite, man. I love doing other shows. I like to sit back and let other people drive and just kind of talk. I don't actually talk a lot on my show, so it's kind of fun to interact with other people and actually get to talk a little bit. So,
Well, now it's your turn to be able to just sit there and talk as much as you can, and we'll sit back and listen. And we're not here to judge. We're not here to make fun of. We want to just, hear everything. And I listen to your podcast all the time. Let me just say that. And the last episode was by far the craziest episode, should I say, the most intriguing. I was all there until some other stuff was said. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm not going to give it away. You're going to have to listen to the podcast, guys. You have to go to Sasquatch Odyssey and listen to it, but it was intense. Have you listened to his podcast yet, Stu?
Not that one. So what's the secret, man? What's the secret thing that's going to be revealed? I guess I got to go out there and look or listen, I guess.
you definitely got. I've talked about it on other shows, so that part of it's really not a secret. I interviewed this guy probably, it was back in April of this year, I think it was, and it started off a little weird. He saw some Sasquatches while he was on a train, and he was younger, and it looked like one of them was wearing a hat, which was kind of weird. But that could be misidentification. It could, he's 11 years old, whatever. And then he starts going into, he's on this outward bound trip, and they start having experiences, and he starts hearing things, and then it just culminates into a visit from a female Sasquatch in his tent where he and she, in his words,
things happened. Oh man,
do the deed. So yeah, it got a little weirder even after that. So yeah, I was a little bit apprehensive. Well, I was a lot apprehensive about putting the show out there, the episode out there, because my show is based on real encounters by real people who have those encounters. And I've always given space to weird things, right? The high strangeness, the woo, I'm not all about that. But if somebody has those experiences, I don't necessarily say you can't come on the show and share it. I'm a flesh and blood guy. I believe these things are real. They are some sort of flesh and blood, relic hominin, something along those lines. And all the weird stuff that comes with it, it could have something to do with it. I'm not so sure. It could be something completely autonomous from the Bigfoot thing. But if people have those experiences, I'll let them share them on the show. Part of my secret sauce, I've told it on the show plenty of times. People know who've been on the show. Brandon knows. He's been on the show as a guest. I don't get into your encounters before you come on. I want to know if you had an encounter, whether you saw something, whether you heard something, whether you smelled something. And then that's it for me, because I want to cold read it. I want to hear it for the first time, just as the audience does when we're recording the show, because I don't want to have preconceived notions about your story. I don't want to have made up my mind about whether you're telling the truth, maybe you're fibbing a little bit, those kind of things I want to make up in real time and do in real time. So I had no idea what this guy was going to say until he got on the show. And then when he went down that rabbit hole, I told him at the end of the show, I was like, dude, we got to hash this out, because there's a lot of people who are going to listen to this and think you're absolutely batshit crazy. And that's just the reality. So he addressed it, to his credit. And I was really concerned about that, because when you put something like that out there, there's a lot of people who could say, well, Brian's not taking this seriously. The show's not serious. And I have a lot of serious researchers and a lot of people who listen to the show who really take this seriously. And I'm one of those people, right? So I was apprehensive and I was concerned about it, but I had a conversation with Danny about it, and I tossed it around with a couple of other people and said, look, should I air this guy's story? And they're like, yeah. I talked to a bunch of people. We were up at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot conference last weekend, and everybody who came up to the table who was a listener of the show, I asked them, I've got this. You've heard me talk about it on the show. Some of them even brought it up to me. Are you going to air that show about this guy that you've been talking about? Because we want to hear it. So I was like, fine, I'll air the show. And it's been fantastic. I mean, it was one of the most highly downloaded shows that I've put out in a long time. I guess it was just the title. I just titled it The Wildest Bigfoot Story Ever. And it kind of is. So, but all the feedback has been great. I've had one person that has left some feedback on Instagram that said, that's why people don't take stories like this. They don't take encounter stories seriously because people like you put out stories like that. And I'm like, well, my answer to that, my rebuttal is, am I supposed to do a Bigfoot podcast that deals in encounters and I only have police officers and hunters who have, fleeting sightings of these things on the show? That's not what happens out there. There's a lot of people who have encounters that they can't explain. And then there's a lot of people like Ryan who certainly believe, and full transparency, Brandon texted me about the episode. He's like, do you believe the guy? I absolutely believe that he believes that happened to him. So that's always my answer. I don't have anybody on the show that does not believe that whatever happened to them happened. So that was a long-winded answer to a short question.
And
love it.
Yeah,
it was a great explanation, though.
Yeah, it was. And honestly, you handled it so professionally, Brian, when he was sitting there talking. And I can just imagine the things that were going through your mind as he was describing, like the hands coming through the tent and touching him, and then the baby. And it wasn't a baby, it was some sort of other creature that hangs out with the big feet. And I can just say that the way you handled yourself was super professional. And you know what? That's what it's about, right? Is making sure that we don't sit there and we don't judge and we don't make these guys feel any less than, right? And that's the thing, is some of these stories that are coming out, whether or not that you want to believe it, if that person believes that it's happened, then like you just said, I believe that they believe it happened, and that's all we got to do, and we got to leave it there. So kudos to you and good job. And that was a great, yeah, it was a great show. Really did enjoy it. So Brian, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. So Sasquatch Odyssey, I've been listening to you for almost a year now, and you reached out to me, or I reached out to you the first time, and we had a little bit of a mix up on time. But I'm so grateful that you were just like, hey, not a big deal. Let's get you back on the show, and let's get your story out there and heard. And that was a crazy story. It wasn't my story per se, but it was my ex-father, stepdad's. And that was crazy. But tell us a little bit about like Sasquatch Odyssey. Give us a little bit of the history. Give us a little bit of the background. Like, when did you start it? Why did you start it? All that.
It seems like it's been a lot longer than it has been, but I really put out the first episode I think it was like February of 2021. So
not long.
No, not as long as most people think, but in podcasting years, 2 years is like a lifetime. So
yeah.
But I started the show because I really wanted to document as many cases as I could where people had encounters in the southeastern United States. And I'm born and raised in Georgia. I now live in North Carolina, but I've always been somewhere in the South. And, Peter Byrne just passed away, this past week. And I was so thankful. I'm actually working on a show I think I'm going to put out Sunday. I'm remastering the episode that I did, the interview that I did with Peter last year. And I got to speak to him, one of the four horsemen, the last four horsemen of the Sasquatchery that was out there. And, we talked about that on the show. And Peter, he didn't believe that these things have ever existed basically east of the Rockies. He thinks everything was centered in the northwestern, Pacific Northwestern United States and Canada, of course. And I had talked to so many people already. I grew up hearing stories in Georgia about people having these encounters with Bigfoot, or what seemed to be now I know as Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Back then it was hairy man or wild man, and I heard these stories growing up. And so my interest was already there, but I had talked to so many people that had these encounters. I wanted to document them. And I thought, well, how am I going to do that? I'm not an archivist, Well, the only way to really do that is to record me talking to them and have the audio from me. Well, that doesn't do anybody else any good. So I thought, well, I want other people to hear this. So how do you do that? You start a podcast. And I didn't know anything about podcast. I'd never even listened to podcast. A friend of mine at work, I think it might've been one of my employees at the time, I don't know, told me about podcasting. And I was like, well, what's that? So I checked out a podcast. And the first thing I listened to was a Bigfoot podcast. And I really got enthralled in the encounters. And I thought, I could probably do that. I didn't have any background in it. I was working in retail. I was a cop for 16 years. And then I was working as a retail manager at the time after I left law enforcement. And I was like, I don't know how to do that, but I have a background in singing. I was always in a band. I've sang my entire life. So I kind of had a little bit of knowledge about, how to put together tracks and things like that. So I thought, well, I can do that. So I started recording people literally on my phone. I found a free app on the iPhone and started recording people. I'd call them up and say, I'm going to record this, and they just tell me their stories. So those first probably 10, 12, 15, even 20 episodes of the show are really rough. And I'm actually trying to go back now with the skills that I've learned over the last 2 years and try to remaster some of that audio because it was pretty bad. So I just started putting the show out there. And like all podcasts, you guys know, you just started this one. Nobody listens. You and 5 of your friends and 2 of your family members are the only people listening. And yeah, that was fine with me. At least people were consuming it on some level. And then the numbers just started to go up and up and up. And I kept working and kept trying to do a better job with the interviews because it was new to me, right? I'd interviewed people as a cop, but I don't interrogate people on my show. There's a big difference in an interview in the field as a police officer on a 911 call versus, hey, tell me about your Bigfoot encounter, and me trying not to look like an ass when or treat somebody really poorly, right? So
Yeah.
So there was always that, but it just grew, and I just continued to put out the episodes, and it was such a passion. It is such a passion of mine. I wanted to do it all the time. That's literally all I wanted to do. But I was working 50 plus hours a week. I was running a super hub auto parts store up in Hickory, North Carolina. And I had, 50 employees, and it was just driving me into the ground. And I was like, the show was doing so well. I'd gotten to a point financially where I was almost replacing the salary that I was making working all these hours at this job that I hated. And I guess it was March of 2022. So basically almost a year to the date when I started the show, I left that full-time job to do it full-time. I just went all in on the show, and I'm thankful that I did because it's the best move I've ever made. So.
Well, I can tell you right now that we could tell the quality of work that you put into it. It's been amazing. And just to have that faith that you jumped right into it, that takes a lot of cojones, man. Not a lot of people can do that, right? And it's like, do I believe in myself? Can we make this happen? So kudos to you for that as well. So that's impressive, man.
Mm-hmm. That is
So
awesome.
Well,
1 year to be able to feel confident to go, I'm doing it.
And it wasn't necessarily me. I had confidence in my audience because without the audience that listens to the show, there wouldn't be a show, right? Because
yeah, that's right.
It's completely up to the audience. And that's what I really had the faith in. I said, if I work hard and I put my heart into this and I show people that I'm very serious about what I'm doing, and obviously people want to listen to a quality show, I had to learn new skills. Wes from Sasquatch Chronicles was huge in helping me change my audio. 3 or 4 months into the show, Wes emailed me and offered to help with the audio, and he did. And it really changed everything almost overnight for me. So
wow.
That was huge. And then from there, I just continued, and, it's a work in progress every day. I learned something new. Brandon, you've shared stuff with me since you started podcasting that has made my life easier as far as editing and things like that. So, and I think that's one of the things that really drew me to you when I met you is I think you and I are sort of kindred spirits when it comes to just collaboration in general, because it just like raising kids, it takes an army, it takes a village to do all these things. It's the same thing with podcasting. I spent 30 minutes on the phone with a listener yesterday who reached out to me a couple of months ago and said, I want to start a Bigfoot podcast. Can I pick your brain? Will you help me start my show? And I gave him 30 minutes of my time yesterday. It took me almost 2 months to get to the point where I could do that, but I'm trying to help him start. And he's former law enforcement. He's a former ATF agent who's getting into the Bigfoot podcasting game. And I'm like, dude, I'll help you any way I possibly can, because I've said it to you before, Brandon. I believe in karma, and as much good as I can put out into the world, whether it be podcasting or whatever, I think it comes back to you tenfold. And what Wes did for me, I'm going to do it until the day I can't do it anymore for anybody I can do it for, because that changed my life. It changed my show. And if I can do one little tiny thing that might even be 100% less than what he did for me, I'm willing to do it for whomever.
Well, I could tell you, I'm truly grateful for the help that you've been able to give me, Stu. I mean, without him and
we wouldn't be where we are with our podcast. No way.
No, absolutely not. And the feedback that he's been able to give me, some of the great pointers that he's been able to give me with like my audio and like, this is what you got to do. You've got to use StreamYard and, Spreaker. Like I was using, what was it? I can't remember what it was. Like it was not anything close to the quality of Spreaker. And man, that changed everything as well when I actually was able to go on there, and then we monetized it. And then we were able to get it on all of the platforms within just a click of a button. It made things so much easier. So absolutely, Brian, I agree with you. Is karma, it will come back, and whether you want it to be good or bad, that's going to be up to you. And man, I believe that we are kindred spirits. And Stu, like we are going to be so stoked to have you here in what 2-3 weeks. So it's going to be awesome, man. It's going to be
The
pretty awesome.
clock is ticking. It is almost SquatchCon time.
It's almost SquatchCon time. But we'll talk about that in just a second. We'll get into that. But Brian, like, so tell us a little bit about like where you are, where you live in. You've got 40 acres. Is that right?
Yes.
And you have experienced some things out there that it just really is unexplainable except for one thing. So what are some of those stories?
Well, that's one of the reasons that we bought the property, honestly, is because we wanted a sanctuary out of the city. We were both city of Atlanta cops for years and we had a house in East Atlanta. It was constant traffic. And I've always wanted to live in the woods, right? I could sort of return to my childhood. That's how I grew up in the rural North Georgia. We were poor as hell. We didn't have anything back then, but I had the woods, and that was always sort of my safe space to just go do whatever I wanted to do. And I wanted to live there again. So we ended up buying the property in, I think, end of 2017. So we've had it for quite a while. And we initially bought 20 acres, a one-day land sale. And then we tried to buy the land next to us. It was already sold. And I think a couple of years after we bought this, we had another plot that somebody had bought at the same time that came open. So we bought it. So we have about 40 acres now. And it took a while before anything really started happening on the property. I always hoped, like deep in my mind, I was into Bigfoot. I thought, okay, if I buy this bunch of property out here, it's surrounded by nothing but land, right? My closest full-time neighbor is about a half or 3/4 of a mile away. And we're just surrounded by hills and valleys and land everywhere. And I thought maybe, just maybe, there might be something out there, right? And I know it's probably, I guess, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. It was before I started the show. The first time we had any experience had a hot tub outside the deck. We have a 400 square foot tiny house. It's a mansion, I'm telling you. But 400 square foot tiny house with a big deck on the front and a hot tub in the front. So, 12 o'clock at night after a hard day at work, you're sitting out in the hot tub, you're sipping a glass of wine, and hear like these Ohio howl kind of vocalizations, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile behind the house, which is nothing but acreage. It takes about 45 minutes for us to hike from our house to the back of our property up this hill, up this ridge. And then on the other side of that, I think there's about 250 acres of just nothing but woods. And that was the direction that we were hearing this coming from. I'm like, I'm half a glass into my first glass of wine. I'm not making this up. Like that was something, right? But it is what it is. Heard that a couple of times over that winter, and it was really, that was it. No tree knocks, no anything else. And then I started the show in February of 21. And I guess it was probably a couple of, maybe 2 or 3 months after that, I'd finished up doing the show for that night. I think I'd had an interview, and I'd sit down and do the show notes for the evening. And I would do that upstairs and read before bed. Well, it's like 50 degrees outside. So we got windows all around our sleeping loft upstairs. Beautiful night, windows open. I'm writing down my show notes, getting ready to call it a night, and hear what sounds like this Ohio howl kind of vocalization. But this time it's about 40 or 50 yards in the woods from the house. And I'm like, and it's loud, like extremely loud. If you've heard what you would think is possibly a Sasquatch anywhere in that area that's close like that, it's almost impossible to describe the volume and the reverberation of what you feel in your chest. Like we felt it. And it had like a bark on the end. It was like this, oh. And I'm like, oh, what was that? I don't know. What was that? Well, what do you think it was? Well, I knew what I thought it was, but of course, I didn't see it, right? And there's been other couple of things, you'd hear like what sounded like something bipedal walking outside at night, up the ridge behind the house and just stuff like that. And then I was finding weird tree structures and what looked like tree structures, breaks in trees. Of course, my cop brain goes to it's Occam's razor, right? It's deadfall. It's natural. Nothing's doing that. I guess the first really big tangible thing that happened that couldn't be explained away, in my opinion. I'm hiking on an area where we hike with the dogs every day. A couple of times a day, we're taking them on this probably, I don't know, quarter-mile trek kind of trail around the property. And I passed by this stump, and there's this bleached out white turtle shell, about, I don't know, 6-8 inches in diameter. And it's turned upside down and it's stuck into the side of this old rotting cedar log or stump. And it caught my eye because it's white. Like anything in, it's not natural. It's not normal to see something that bright white out in the woods. So I walk over and I pick it up and I'm like, how did this get stuck? Like something stuck it in the side of this stump. Like this turtle didn't just wander up there the day before because I'd walked past there and it wasn't there. And now it is. Like, that is just really strange. So I sat on it for a day or two. And then I posted something about it I was like, okay, I'm going to post and see if anybody's ever experienced this. Cause I was apprehensive. Like I'm the dude who's now doing a Bigfoot podcast. Now I'm going to start having experiences. I'm going to be that guy. Right. But I wanted to see if it could possibly be something to it. So I put something out about it and people are like, oh yeah. And they start sending me pictures. Yeah. This got left on a stump and it had moles in it. Little tiny dead moles were stuck in this turtle shell and just all this weird stuff. So I'm like, okay, this could possibly be a gifting stump situation, right? I've heard of this stuff. I've talked to people who have been gifting with these things and back and forth. And I thought, well, I'm just going to put some stuff out there. I'm going to put a rock out there. I'm going to stick an apple on the stick and stick it in the middle of the stump. And I'm going to put some peanut butter out there, sun butter. We like, ground up sunflower seeds, sun butter, and see what happens. And I'm going to put up a trail cam and see what happens. Initially, I didn't put the trail cam up because, of course, people said if it's a gifting situation, if there's a camera there, they're not going to come around if it's a Sasquatch. I'm like, okay, I'm not so sure I believe that, but I'll go with that logic. So I didn't put a camera up for a couple of days. And I stuck an apple on a stick. And I went back. Next day, nothing. Next day, nothing. I think it was the third day. I walked the dogs by. And I look over at the stump. It's right in the woods, maybe 10, 15 yards off the trail. And the apple is still stuck on the stick, but there's a big bite going out of the apple. Still sticking on the stick, still in the middle of the stump, right where I put it, but there's a big bite going out of the apple.
Wow.
Like, at this point, I think I'm crazy, right? So I pick the apple up, I pick the stick up, the apple's still stuck on the stick, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, nobody's going to believe this. Now, could it have been an ungulate? Could it have been a deer? Could it have been, it could have been any number of things. Could a raccoon have bitten it? But it looked like a human took a bite out of this apple and just put it back down. So I take some pictures of it. I still have the pictures on my phone. I've shared them on my social media. They're out there on my Instagram and whatnot now. But
do you mind sending us some of the pics and we can actually post it?
Sure. Yeah, I'll be glad to. I'll text them to you when we get off here. But I sent it to Wayne, who hosts the Paranormal Odyssey show for me. I sent it to Wayne and I was like, dude, I'm not going to give you really any context. I just want you to look at this and tell me what you think this looks like. And he comes back and he says, it looks like a nasty apple that somebody took a bite out of because it started to mold. It'd been out there for like 3 days or whatever. And I was like, then I told him what happened. And he's like, dude, that's really strange. Like, what could have done that? So I started I put some trail cams up and I would get some pictures of raccoons here and there. So there were definitely raccoons in the area. But I put a big jar of sun butter out there and I stuck it down into the stump with the top screwed on it. And I put another apple there. And I think the second or third day I did that, I came out and the entire jar was gone. The apple was still in place, but the jar was completely gone and there was nothing on my trail camera. So I have no idea what took it. That happened a couple of times with the sun butter. But nothing ever, a couple of apples disappeared, but no more bites and stuck on the stick like that. So again, Occam's razor, it's probably a raccoon. It's probably raccoons carry things off. We see videos of those, funny videos of raccoons carrying food all the time. Maybe it's a raccoon, but I couldn't find the jar. I've looked everywhere. I couldn't find the tops. I couldn't find the jars, nothing. They're just gone. So I don't know, but the stick structures, those things, we had Vice come out and filmed a television show about the show at the end of 2022. And they were here for like 10 days and filmed. And then I went to Georgia and filmed for a couple of days. And then once post-production started, they needed to do some pickup. They needed more B-roll. They needed a couple of more things with me. So they sent somebody out here to the property to hang out with me for a day. It was like an 8-hour shoot with just me and a cameraman. So we start walking around the property and I'm letting him lead. I'm like, you tell me where you want to go. So he goes and walks into this certain area. It's literally on the other side of where this stump situation is. And there's a whole bunch of trees broken and like what looks like, he said it looks like nests or it looks like structures. He said, can we walk over there? I was like, go ahead. So we walk over there and I start looking and he's pointing. He's like, that's crazy, man. That looks like that one's stuck behind. And I'm like, I'd walked past this area, but I'd never really paid attention to it. So he starts filming me as I walk over there. And the more I looked, there's literally trees that are woven behind other trees. They're stuck up behind and they're making like this teepee sort of thing. It was weird, man. And so it ended up making it into the episode of the Vice show or on Vice. And, I was like, this is strange. I don't know what to make of it. But so we've had that going on. And then I guess it all culminated about, I don't know, it was 3 weeks ago. I can't remember what the last big holiday we had was where everybody was off work. It was like a Monday. And I said, I'm not going to work today. I'm not doing anything to the show. I don't have any editing to do. I'm not going to do any interviews. Let's just go on a hike on the property and let's hike. We do this all the time. Hike a different spot that we've never been. Start at this point and go up. So we did that. And I know we're 15 minutes into the hike. And I start seeing these weird, what look like nests. Like, it's hard to explain. I'll send you the pictures. I have pictures of this too. And so I stopped. I wasn't even going to take my phone with me. This is how disconnected from anything Bigfoot related I was. I didn't want to be in the woods with my phone. I just happened to take it. I was like, okay, if one of us falls or we get attacked by a bear or something, if we can get a signal, we might need to call somebody, or I might see something cool. I'll take a picture. So I pulled my phone out and I started snapping a couple of pictures of this stuff. And then I go down to this area where it's not a running creek at this point. It's like just a wet sort of, like standing water kind of situation. And we go down and I go to cross over it and I look down and I see what looks like a footprint. I'm like, that is so, I just immediately saw it and I thought, oh, that's like pareidolia, right? Yeah. It's like you glance up at the shower and you see a face in the water droplets, right? So I look down and I'm like, that's a pareidolia footprint. That's cool. I'm going to take a picture of it. And I take my phone out to take a picture of it. And the more I got closer and looked at it, there's 5 toes. I counted 5 toes in like the front of this thing. And it's smushed down in the front more than it is in the back. Like something sort of, how you kind of tiptoe and kind of just press down and then just keep going, not a full, like I'm kind of come to a stop there. It's just kind of like, I'm going to step here and then keep going. That's kind of what it looked like. And the more I looked at it and I snapped, I guess 3 or 4 pictures I took of it, I was like, that really looks like a footprint. So keep on. We find all kinds of cool stuff. I found some fulcrum type deals. We get to the back of the property, the 45-minute hike I was talking about, and there's a rock stack at the back of the property with like 8 or 10 rocks stacked up like one on top of the other. So I've got pictures of that. And there's nobody back there, dude. It's not like, the first thing people say is, oh, well, that's somebody that just walked up there. They're messing with you. No, that doesn't happen in this area. We've had trespassers. You've seen one of the trespassers I posted a video of. She was way down near the road, right? She was the one doing dirt angels near the road. There's nobody 45 minutes into the woods behind our house. So,
well, there's no way to get back there, right? Like the only way to that is through your property, through your house, basically. Like there's no other way, really, is there?
well, sure, there's connecting property. So if someone were there and someone wanted to walk up there and then walk back along the ridge line, sure, you could get there. Or you could come through the back 250 acres back here from wherever you would have to start and then end up there. Sure. So it's possible. I never say never. So it is possible that it's a person. So that happens. And I get back to the house and I got signal. We don't have any signal here cell wise until we get Wi-Fi. So I sent the pictures to Doug Highcheck. I texted Doug and I said, no context. Just tell me what you think this looks like. And of course he says, well, it kind of looks like a footprint, but wait, Doug's mind works in different ways. He said, that looks like a thumbprint. It looks like it might have been like a handprint, like this sort of weird thumb impression off to the left side of the picture as you're looking down at it. I saw it and I was like, wow. I still don't know. I didn't see what put its hand there. I didn't see what put its foot there. For all I know, it could still be a pareidolia footprint. I don't know, but it's just really strange. And then when you have the culmination of all these things, and then, literally, 5 or 6 yards away, I'm finding what looks like a nest and these weird fulcrum things like balanced on top of each other kind of structures. It's just really strange stuff. So we've got a lot going on, man. And then I finally heard literally like 3 days afterwards, because that's the thing Doug has always asked me. Have you ever heard tree knocks? We've got creeks that run. There's 2 creeks that run the full length of our property, and they come together right where near the house. He's like, you got water, you've got all these woods. Have you ever heard tree knocks? I'm like, no, I've never heard tree knocks. Literally 3 days after I found this track, I went out. We do live in the middle of the woods, and I am known to get up occasionally and relieve myself off the front porch at 3 a.m. So that's exactly what happened. And I'm outside at 3 a.m. and I hear like 4 bam, 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 like what squatchers would call power knocks. Like, I don't know, a quarter mile away, I guess. And it stops me in my tracks. And I'm like, what? Now it's 3:15. I think I looked, it was like 3:17 in the morning, right? We're in Lenoir, North Carolina. This was like a Wednesday night, because that happened on Monday. This was like Wednesday night. Nothing happens in Lenoir, North Carolina at 3:15, right? It's not like Atlanta. If you're downtown Atlanta, I mean, some people are just getting wound up at 3:15. So it could have been anything, but I don't know what would have made that noise other than a Bigfoot power knock. I don't know how else to explain it, but I only heard those 4. And I think I came back in and I heard what I thought was just one single, but I can't be sure. I can't say that for certain because I was back inside the house. The air cons were going. It was, we run the fan. So I could have been just mistaken there. But I guess the latest thing, and I haven't even talked about this on my show because I really don't know what to make of this. It's kind of, well, it's not kind of, it is really strange. And I'll have to send you this audio and just let you hear it. I'm planning on probably posting it tomorrow. I've been kind of figuring out how to frame it because I'm buying equipment. I'm going on an expedition with Todd Standing in October. I'm going up to BC, Canada to go out with Todd on an expedition for a week. So I wanted to buy some equipment. So I'm audio, of course. So I reached out to a couple of people that do a lot of field research. And I said, what do you guys use? I don't want to spend $5,000 on recorders. Can I get something for a couple of $100 that will sound good? Because, you can buy something for $100. Everybody says Zoom H1. That's what Doug kept telling me. They're about $100 and something bucks. But I've heard people say you do better with a little bit of a cheaper one with just an external mic. It seems to sound better outside. So long story short, I bought 2 Sony, whatever they are, PX470 or whatever. They were like $70 a piece. And I brought one home. I got them Amazon. I pulled one out, put some batteries in it. And I'm like, everybody's been after me. David Ellis from the Olympic Project has been after me for a couple of years because of stuff I've heard. He's like, put recorders out, Brian. Just you live with audio. Just put recorders out. So I thought, I'm going to test this thing out tonight. They're supposed to have like 27 hours of record time on like 2 AAA batteries. So it's like, okay, I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to put it out tonight at about 10 when we go to bed. And I'll get up, I'll pull it in about 8 o'clock tomorrow and see what I get. So I did that. It was a perfect quiet night. It's raining outside now. It's been pouring all day. So there's a lot of rain bouncing off the house now, but this was perfectly quiet. It was nothing but crickets. It was a beautiful, just crickets singing throughout the night. So I put the recorder on the porch. I didn't even go out into the woods. I just put it on the porch, laid it on the couch on the porch. We have a little seating area, and it's got an external mic with about a 3 or 4 foot cord to it. I just connected it to, we've got some string lights that hang over the deck. Put it up there, turned it on, went to bed. I get up the next morning and I pulled it in. I put everything on a micro SD card. I brought it in and I uploaded it to my computer, and I pulled it into my software that I use to edit the show. When you work with audio, if anybody out there has ever done anything in audio enough to watch what the waves look like when people are talking, I can literally pull audio from a show and tell you what an looks like, what an and looks like, what a looks like before I get there. Before I hear it, I know what it looks like. So I'm pretty comfortable with audio. As soon as I put this in, it was just a straight line. At about 20 minutes in, I started getting spikes. I thought, there's something there. I don't know, without playing it or letting you hear it, I can't even describe to you the sounds that I recorded. It was a couple of different things. It sounded like something at some points. Sometimes it would last for 20 or 30 seconds. I think there's one point it lasted for almost 20 minutes. It sounds like somebody is scratching the external mic with a fingernail, or they're picking it up and moving it around. There was another one that almost sounds like it sounds like a sound effect almost. It's like a, and then it goes into the scratching stuff. There's so much. I think I've got about 6 minutes, because I sent this to Doug as well after it happened. And I said, dude, just tell me I'm not crazy. What do you hear? And Doug said it sounded alien to him. He said, that doesn't sound like any animal I've ever heard. And he even said he got this weird deja vu feeling when he heard it, and it was driving him crazy. So we immediately sent it to David Ellis over at the Olympic Project, and David hasn't gotten back to me. He's supposed to be, running it through his software and see what he sees, but it's really, really strange. And so I thought, I've got to do some kind of control, right? So the very next night, I pulled the other recorder out. I labeled it new. It's still here on my desk with the little piece of tape on it that says new, because it was a brand new one I took out. I took a video of me taking it out of the packaging, and I put them side by side on the porch and hit record and went to bed. I get up the next morning, and outside of just a little bit of that, at one point there's like a little bit of the scratching kind of sound that I heard the night before. They both record the exact same thing. It's crickets. So the recorder's function. I say all that to say the recorder is functioning properly. Initially I thought, okay, it's not functioning properly. It's something internally in the recorder. But it recorded for 9 hours the second day next to this other one, and neither one of them had any of the sounds that remotely sounded like anything I'd recorded the night before. So that's definitely, in my opinion, not anything Bigfoot related, but it's really freaking strange. So I'll send you the audio. I think I can text it to you. Like I said, it's about 6 minutes. If not, I'll Dropbox it to you just so you can hear it, because it was eerie. It's eerie. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I definitely want to hear it. I think Stu would want to hear it as well. But if it's that like eerie, we got a lot of background noise, Stu. We got a lot of background noise.
You got stuff happening. Okay,
Yep. Sorry, Stu's got a house full. He's got a lot of people there. He's a family man of a family man, and that's what I love about Stu. Is anybody and everybody's welcome in his house, and he's such a great guy.
Well, sometimes my dog bites people that come in, but if he doesn't bite you, you're welcome. He's a lab Great Dane mix, so he's a big scary dude.
Gotcha.
Yep. But yeah, that would be awesome, Brian. If you can send that over to us, that would be something that I would love to hear. And I don't know, maybe one day, if I bring a whole bunch of sun butter maybe one day I can come on over and we can go out together and see what's out there. Now, I do have a granddad that, well, he's kind of on his deathbed now, and it's kind of a sad thing, and I need to go see him. But I've heard that there are Black Panther over there that a lot of people don't think are like existing over there. So, have you heard about that, or have you seen any Black Panther at all over there?
I haven't seen it, but I've talked to people that have it. I think I've actually had a couple of listeners that have sent me photographs that either they have taken or other people have taken with trail cams and other things of what looks to be a Black Panther. So, yeah, I've heard the same thing. I think they're out there. I think it's
Yeah,
definitely there's a there for sure.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, Brian, man, I can't tell you just how grateful we are for you to come onto our show today and just to hear a little bit about your
Truly,
stories.
truly appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Yeah. You heard my stories. Stu's got some pretty cool stories. You know, he was out hunting and he witnessed something. And just hearing your stories, it's pretty awesome, man. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. And again, thank you for all your help with our podcast. And
The only thing, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I am going to interrupt. The only thing that was missing is I thought you were going to get to the back of the property and see all that stuff and a jar of butternut, the empty jar with the lid. That's okay.
That
I was
would have
waiting
been
for that.
cool.
I was waiting for it. It's like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah, if it had been sitting on top of the rocks or something, that would have been really cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would have been really cool. That would have been. So, everybody, Brian is going to be here for our SquatchCon, and so he's going to be one of the celebrities who's going to be up there, and we are going to be analyzing something that really no one's really seen yet, and we're not going to really discuss it. We're going to be doing another podcast next week with everybody that's going to be coming to SquatchCon. We're going to kind of talk about it, but we want everybody to know that it's going to be something that's going to be unprecedented. So, are you stoked for SquatchCon? I mean, this is something that I think no one's ever done this type of SquatchCon caliber, if you will. And again, Brian, like me and you were having that conversation. It was like a light bulb for both of us, and I was like, let's do that. So, what are your thoughts? I mean, are you stoked about it, or?
Yeah, I really am, man, because, like you said, I think what we're going to be taking a look at is something that really deserves its comeuppance, if you will. I think somebody needs to take a little bit of a closer look at it. And who better than Jeff Meldrum and Cliff Barrickman, to have those two guys even take a look at what's going on and being able to discuss that with them. I hung out with Cliff up at Gatlinburg. He was at the Gatlinburg conference last week, and just a super, super good guy. I've had Dr. Meldrum on the show. Just they're two of the best in Bigfoot, in my opinion. You're not going to find any nicer guys, and you're not going to find anybody that is any more knowledgeable about just about everything to do with Bigfoot. So just to be even on the same stage with those guys, in my opinion, is just an honor. So yeah, I'm stoked about it. I can't wait. My favorite thing in the world is to go to conferences and actually see people face to face. I met so many amazing fans in Gatlinburg, and I can't wait to see everybody in SquatchCon. It's going to be a great time. So everybody who gets the chance to come out, I hope they do for sure.
Absolutely. And if they can't make it out in person, you're going to be able to go on and be able to watch it live. So make sure that you guys go to squatchconidaho.com. And Stu, tell us a little bit about that. So what are they going to find at squatchconidaho.com?
Well, we have the traditional conference, convention, whatever you want to call it, trade show. We're going to have vendors there to be able to, so you can get those favorite things with squatchy things, I guess is the best way to put it. But more importantly, one of the things that are actually a couple of the things that are going to be included go all the way back to SquatchCon 2021 when I did the first one. And we're going to have a map there that has the sightings in Idaho, which we should have. If you're going to go to an Idaho thing, you got to do that. We're going to have a full size 8.5-foot Bigfoot that's hairy and 3-dimensional, so you can get your picture taken with Bigfoot, and you can use focus on your camera when you do that. And we're gonna have an encounter board, and this will give people a chance. Basically, it's a big bulletin board, and we're gonna have 3x5 cards and pens and pencils. And if you've had a sighting or even heard one, you'll be able to document it there and put it up on the board for other people to read. And I will probably go over it and let people. I'll read your card during the show, preliminary stuff. So
yeah, it's
those
going
are
to be
a few
awesome.
of the things.
Yep, it's going to be pretty awesome. Sasquatch calling contest. You know, stories about
Yeah,
the
and I
campfire.
didn't even say, yeah. And then after we're done with our world premiere, then we're going to do that Bigfoot calling contest. So start working on your vocal cords so that you don't strain them too bad when you do your call.
That's right. That's right. So, guys, you can find all your tickets and you can find everything at squatchconidaho.com. And so, with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off here. But we just wanted to let everybody know we're so truly grateful for our sponsors. Stu, do you have that list of sponsors by chance?
I don't have it handy this time.
That's all right. That's all right.
But
So,
if they watch, but they can go back and they can watch the opening intro, and all the sponsors are on there, and you can pause for a long time. And we recommend that you do that because we want you to support the people who are supporting SquatchCon.
yeah, that's right. That's right. There's going to be a couple on there that we can't post, and that's probably because it's a huge company. We have not got their permission to use their logo. It's AT&T. They donated 5 iPhone 14s for us to be able to use, so we can actually broadcast and stream that live
For our live
video.
stream.
Yep. So I just want to say thanks to them for that, because that's huge and that's going to be amazing. So yeah, it's going to be great, guys. Brian, thanks again, man. Gosh dang it. That's going to be awesome to have you here, man. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you.
I am looking forward to it, man. I can't wait to hang out with you guys in person.
Yep, it's going to be great. All right. Well, this is Brandon with Squatchnut.com signing off.
This is Stu Johnson with Squatchcon Idaho signing off. Can't even say it.
I guess that makes me Brian from Sasquatch Odyssey signing off, right?
There we go.
Oh, indeed it does, sir. All right. Well, have a great day, guys.